I want to move on to some Zelda Echoes of Wisdom impressions. Of course,
Ooh.
I reviewed this last week.
With Tom Marks.
With Tom Marks, exactly. I gave it a 8.5 out of 10 on the kind of funny scale. I know a couple of the people here are playing it. Barrett, Blessing, Andy have all at least started the game. Bless, I know you haven't played much. Real quick, what are your initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, I've only played, I think, the first hour of it. It intrigues me. Here's my thing. I am not a top-down Zelda person, surprisingly, probably to a lot of people, right? Like, I came up, Barrett shows up shaking his head, right? And it's not even a thing of me trying to resist top-down Zelda. It's usually been a wrong place, wrong time, right? Like, my first console growing up was in N64, and so, like, already I was born in the 3D era. I was never a like handheld DS person or 3DS person, and so I missed the ones that came out there. So I always just came up with 3D Zeldas. Picking up Echoes of Wisdom, I played it for a bit on stream on my computer monitor, and I will be honest, the first thing I noticed was the performance. It was one of those things that shocked me because I hadn't read the reviews or listened to many people talk about it. I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, I got to a bit of a populated area, and there were stutters where I was like, oh man, the Switch is old. The Switch is an old device. But even getting past that, right? Like, I love the art style. I love looking at this game just from a stylistic direction. I think it looks really cute. It reminds me of Link's Awakening in that way. I like how much they're focusing in on, copying a item in the world and then replicating it and using that to solve problems. In the first hour, it has been an adjustment in my brain of, oh, there's an enemy. I don't have a sword, and so I guess I'm gonna throw rocks at it. Oh wait, I can spawn another enemy to then fight that enemy like it's Pokemon. Oh, that's neat. But it has, like, I think for me, had a bit of a slow start, just trying to like wrap my mind around those things. So far, I'm not in a place where I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna keep going on with it just for the fact that I have a lot of games that I'm playing and trying to balance everything. I am intrigued, but I don't know, how much further I'm gonna go with it at this point, at least.
Barrett, how far are you, and what are you thinking so far?
Right now, I would say I'm like 3 hours in. I just, there's like kind of the tutorial dungeon, and then the game kind of early on points you to 2 different dungeons to start. So I went southwest to the Gerudo area in the game. I am not vibing with it so far. Funny enough, I was listening to the Giant Bombcast yesterday where they had Jason Schreier on, and he, like, kind of the frustrations he voiced, I think put into like really good, because I was struggling to figure out like why I wasn't vibing with it. I think the kind of copying mechanic in terms of combat, in terms of like fighting enemies and stuff, feels a bit slow, and like not very engaging and not very interesting. And I think the dungeon parts of the game so far, in terms of puzzles, I am kind of looking for something a bit deeper in terms of puzzles. I feel like a lot of solutions are a bit simpler, and so I think it's an interesting kind of like, you have 2 sides of this game. One side feels very much coming off of Tears of the Kingdom, with like something creative and new and weird and different in encouraging you to solve puzzles in any way you want, but then also having that combined with more classic 2D Zelda kind of dungeon and puzzle design, I'm not quite feeling. But listening to that Giant Bombcast, Jeff Grubb and Dan Riker also weren't feeling it in the first opening hours, and then they got to a point where it kind of clicked for them. So it's one that, like, I'm not vibing with right now, but like I want to get through at least a few more dungeons before I just like completely kind of like walk away from it for a little bit. Wow. So and I don't think it's bad or anything. It's just like I think right now, at least in its first opening hours, I don't think it has like the strongest start, and it's just kind of, at least for me currently, kind of wrong place, wrong time. But I do want to stick with it.
That's my thing too when you talk about like the opening to top-down Zeldas, where I have the same thing happen where, obviously, like I mentioned, I grew up, or my first console was the N64. But I did, like, my sisters owned an NES that I would go back and check out. And then also, I came up allegedly, possibly, with emulators and shit, And so, like, I would go back and try different 2D Zelda games, of course, like the original Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, and Link's Awakening. And I've always had the thing where it's that first hour that always gets me, and I've always wanted to just like push past it. Because I like playing it, I'm like, I can tell that this is gonna build to something special, and I'm gonna get lost in it, and I just need to like get to that point where I get lost in it. Yeah, if I can power through those first few hours. But that's always the struggle that I have. Another thing I want to point out that I amuse me in the first hour is like, you obviously like you're playing a Zelda, right? And there's like an area early on where you're kind of in a dungeony kind of area, and they're teaching you the mechanics. And there's one room you go into where you see a bed, and you can copy the bed, and then you can replicate the bed in order to like hop out of things, right? There's a room you go into where there are just beds stacked in the most awkward way, and you can tell that like they're doing that to kind of let you know, hey, you can stack beds like on each other to create a bridge if you want to. But like walking into a room and seeing beds already stacked in a way where it's like they're stacked on each other's edges, I'm like, what are we doing here?
No human being would stack beds this way.
What is the environmental storytelling that's going on here? Because this doesn't make any sense.
This episode is brought to you by Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Durable frames and world-class optics for all outdoor adventures. With an extensive array of styles and colors, you're bound to find the perfect pair of Shady Rays sunglasses. Y'all know Tim has been outside in the sun a lot playing Pokemon Go, and he's having a great experience wearing Shady Rays when he's out and about looking dope. If you don't love your Shady Rays, exchange for a new pair or return them within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal. Head to shadyrays.com and use code KINDAFUNNY for 50% off 2 or more pairs of shades. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. That's shadyrays.com and use code KINDAFUNNY for 50% off 2 or more pairs of shades.
In my canon, I was like, "Oh, somebody with this power escaped."
Has
from
already
here.
been here.
Yeah, that's what I sort of did.
I like
Thinking
that.
man.
I'm about 4 or 5 hours in so far. I'm really, really enjoying it. I think it's like way too charming and cute, and just like it's just a lovely experience so far. But I've also experienced a lot of different puzzle moments that you put on the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom sort of problem-solving hat, right? And there was a treasure chest that was kind of high above where I was, and I couldn't really reach it. So I stacked up a box, and anytime you want to stack up one of these items, it uses the currency from your little homie who's kind of floating around with
Your
you, right?
homie.
So a box might only cost 1, but a larger box might cost 2 or 3 or whatever. So I was having to kind of like problem solve and figure out how many can I put down, because I also want to spawn a little fire blob guy to then toss to try to light all this on fire. And I was able to find the right sort of combination of all 3 of them. So I had a box, and then I put a tree on top of the box, and then I threw the fire guy at it all, and the fire went up, lit that little wooden thing on fire. The treasure chest fell down. And I was like, man, this is so sick. And I love that. It's essentially, when we heard them talking about future Zelda games and saying, yeah, but we don't know if we'll ever go back to the old style, because we just find so much freedom, and like we love designing a game where you can kind of just problem solve however you want. This feels like a perfect kind of melding of those two ways of thinking and designing a game. Where is it going to be a pure linear Zelda game, or are we going to go with hey, this world is sort of just like a sandbox that you can do whatever the hell you want with whatever abilities you want. I think so far I'm really, really enjoying the melding of the two. I do wish that this Ultra Hand sort of comparative power that you have, I wish you could rotate and do more with it. I don't love that you're just kind of stuck in that direction.
See, the thing with that is I was with you, and I said this in the review as well, but as the game progresses, I learn to appreciate it, because that it becomes part of the design of not being able to do that. Like, I feel like has creative puzzle solutions that you have to figure out of like, being limited by that, it's like, how the hell am I going to get this up here? Like, I'm just not on the right level. And then you have to use all your different tools. And in the later game, having to combine them in ways that I thought were like pretty damn creative. And the coolest thing with the creativity is like, even watching this trailer, and over the last week, I've been watching people stream the game, just like clicking around and checking in on things. And people are using the tools in ways that I never even thought of and like never experienced at all in my playthrough of the game. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I've already had that sort of same feedback that when everybody was playing Tears of the Kingdom and I'd be streaming it and going through a shrine and you'd have 5 people go, I did it this way. What the fuck are you doing, Andy? Why did that work? How did that work? Like I've already experienced that several times where there's a very kind of almost an obvious way to do things, but my dumb brain not noticing the obvious way, just doing shit another way and trying to like make the game work according to how I want it to work and trying to solve that puzzle. And I really appreciate it for the freedom in all these tools that they're sort of giving you. And so far, I'm having a really great time. I think it's super charming. I think it's really funny in a lot of moments. These characters have just really fun back and forth. So I appreciate the dialogue. I love the look of it. I agree with Bless, though. I think I'm experiencing less frame rate issues handheld because when you play docked, it tries to put it up to 1080p, and that causes a lot more frame rate issues. But playing handheld yesterday with this sort of heat wave we've got going in SF right now, I moved the AC from the stream room into my bedroom, and I was like, I'm not going to walk into my stream room at all. I'm just going to play Zelda in the bed with the AC on, the little window unit, and had a freaking great time with it.
Yeah, hearing about you being that far in and like the experiences of solving a puzzle one way and having people in chat be like, oh, I didn't even think about doing that. I did this way. That's the thing that makes me want to push through. And so I'm hoping like I have a possible trip I'm going on soon that maybe if I can take my Switch with me and just make that the thing I focus on.
That'd be, I think that's like, I wish I could have played this on a plane. Like they would have like made a plane just like plane ride go.
And
like,
that's my whole thing where I cannot wait to play this, but I'm putting it off till that New York trip in November. I've decided. I think by then, originally that was my idea of like, well, maybe that's why I play Dragon Age on PC, so I can Steam Deck it there, but we should have review codes, so I should be well through that by that point. So right now in this heat of review season where literally you have to budget out all of your time to figure out what you're playing for what embargo, I look at everything I've seen here and I cannot wait to play that. It looks so much fun.
One thing I want to shout out is even in the first hour that I played, the music is off the chain.
Oh yeah,
it's
so good.
It is such a good soundtrack so far.
Yeah. Which isn't surprising. Like this is the same. This is Grezzo, right? So this is the same team that did the Link's Awakening remake, and like that style that they were able to play around with in the Link's Awakening remake. I think they know what they're doing in terms of like making their own type of Zelda game in all sorts of aspects. And that music, oh, it's good. Yeah.
There is just also something about the charm of it being a Zelda game, right? And I know a lot of people will look at it and say, if it didn't have Zelda smacked on the box or whatever, it was just any other, swap out what that character looks like and just call it something else, you all wouldn't like it as much. And I think back to my time with a Plucky Squire and kind of playing through what can be very, very similar sort of gameplay loops of you have this sort of top-down 3D character walking around, slashing stuff with a sword, and I'm playing Zelda, and I'm like, why am I enjoying this so much more than I was a Plucky Squire?
Why is that?
And I think Plucky Squire just kind of like maxed out really early on for me. It never really reached those highs again, and I found myself kind of underwhelmed with what the rest of that experience was.
Agreed, 100%, yeah.
And there's just something about the music, the art style, this sort of like total package that Nintendo has put together that just makes it awesome to be in. Like I'm smiling the whole time because it just feels good to look at and to play,